Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the Latched Mama podcast. For those of you who are joining us for the first time, the Latched Mama podcast is a podcast for all of the mothers in the trenches of motherhood. Lindi and I are here today for the 4th week of our Affirmation blanket series. You're listening to Latched Mama podcast. I'm your host, Melissa Wirt, busy mom of 6 and owner of LatchedMama.com. Join us each week as we talk about pregnancy, breastfeeding, postpartum, and all things motherhood. Hi, friends.
Hi.
How are you?
Great.
We're podcasting on a Friday, which we don't normally do.
No.
I forgot my lunch today. So I have snacks coming from the grocery store, but they're not here yet. So I don't know.
What'd you order?
I ordered the cheese doodles that I ordered the other time. Like Pipcorn makes them. They were on Shark Tank. I really enjoy them. I
need these snacks to, they need to look better than my lunch. Although that's really yummy, but
I ordered
I will live through you.
The Pipcorn cheese doodles. I also ordered some grilled chicken strips, some quinoa brown rice that I can put in the microwave, and some teriyaki sauce and some green beans.
Oh, okay. Well,
yeah. But
we both have nice little healthy lunches.
Yes. Okay. Anyways, okay. You guys probably want to not talk about my lunch.
It's last week.
It is the last week.
How can you get a blanket?
Yes. So if you guys take this podcast and you subscribe and you share it, and maybe for extra credit, you write us a review, and then email those steps to Latched Mama, or email them to podcast@latchedmama.com. We will send you out an awesome blanket that goes over all of the different affirmations that we have been talking about. What are this week's affirmations,
all right,
Lindi?
Here's your 3. You ready?
Yeah.
What is best for you may not be best for me. My thoughts have value, and I'm getting stronger.
Aren't these these are 3 amazing life ones, outside of motherhood.
Yeah.
They can be applied everywhere. They're good therapy ones.
They really can, but I feel like when I read through them, it came with a bit of maturity, through that motherhood growth. So I thought they'd be great for at the end, because
they're amazing.
You can tie them in as you're kind of coming out of that haze.
What is the first one? What's best for me may not be best for you. Yeah.
I mean, it ties into so many things that we talked about, even the last one.
Yeah.
What were we hitting on? Oh, I tied into maternal intuition. Do
Mm-hmm.
I want to go do this? Is it going to be a good thing? Do I have to do it just because you did it? Does it have to work for me because it worked for you? You know?
And I think that there's another step you can take with it. It's almost like a connection step, in the sense that connection is so hard in motherhood, and making friends and building kind of that village back. And it's something that I've been really digging into, how we want to cover in the book, because that step right there, it's never going to be the same. You can have the best friendship in the entire world, but you're not always going to want to do the same thing. Lindi and I were friends, and I'm homeschooling my kids, and you were like, hey, all mine are going back to school, because that was what was best for you. But I didn't feel in any way that you were judging my decision to still keep mine at home. It's just, I think that it's so hard, because there are so many decisions that we have to make every single day in motherhood. And you're never going to make the same decision as other people in your life. Mm-hmm. You could walk through life with a bestie, eat every single meal together, do everything the same way, and you're going to still make different decisions for yourself and your kids and your family. Mm-hmm. And I think that so much of kind of some of that disconnection that we see in motherhood and insecurity and judgment comes from the fact that all of a sudden somebody makes a different decision than us, and we start questioning our intuition, or we start questioning what we're doing for our family. It comes across as judgment. It comes across as insecurity and shame. And then all of a sudden we're in this spiral disconnected mess, where it's easier to just live on our little island than really truly be confident in our decisions, and confident that somebody can love us and see us through those. You know?
And I think, that's ultimately for me, the hardest part is to accept. It's you just know in that part of your brain really what is a good decision for you and what is good for you, but to truly be okay with that, to truly make that decision, in knowing that, at least for me, I've done work on myself. I can be confident in that decision. I'm not losing out on anything. I'm not knowing that this path is the right one for me at this time. It can always change. that can be really difficult.
And I think that there's like a perfectionism piece in it too, because like not every decision you're ever going to make, like what's best for me and that decision that I make is not always going to be the correct thing, or it's not always going to go successfully. And I think it's really important that we have a place, like a safe place to land when that happens, and like friendships and people in our life that accept our imperfection, you know, as much as that. I don't know.
Yeah. But if you take that way back to like those early postpartum days, I think that's where this is really difficult, because then it starts to tie into the whole like my body can do amazing things, but maybe you had the goal of breastfeeding, but it didn't work out that way. And like, you know, what's best for me, you know, and then you are trying to find that connection in that brand new kind of life that you have, and so but if I was only doing this, I could fit in with that group, and everybody breastfeeds their baby at the, you know, all together at a little play date, or you know, whatever, but you feel maybe a little about the odd duck, you know, you feel like an odd duck because you're pumping or doing something different, but it's actually best for you at that time. It's
I think it keeps us in this place where we don't always choose what's best for us, which I think is the hard part, is like that there's a difference between knowing that something is probably the best decision for our family. So like I tell the Matthew story about breastfeeding all the time. Like, I mean, most of my kids I breastfed until I got pregnant again. Nathan, I was able to breastfeed through my pregnancy with my second one. I breastfed him until he was like 3.5. But with Matthew, I just was not making enough milk. And at some point I had to give up on the fact, or I chose what was best for me, which was I'd pump once or twice here at work, but for the most part he was on donor milk, and he's been on donor milk now ever since. That was a really, really hard decision, because I knew that it was the best decision for me, but to make that leap and actually do that, and actually to be talking about it right now, there's not really a sense of failure in my mind. I'm actually proud of myself for choosing what was best for me and my family, and it was by far the best decision for my mental health and just in general for him. And it's been a really great thing. But if I had stayed in that moment where I was trying to impress people, or I was trying to show up here and be something that I wasn't, or, you know, be breastfeeding my baby on all the lives or something like that, instead I just owned it. Remember the first time that we were on a live and that he was taking a bottle or something, and I got torn apart by somebody. They were like, I don't understand why you're a breastfeeding clothing company and you have your baby having a bottle. I think it was probably my milk at that point. I don't even know if it was my milk or not. But it's just so funny, the judgment, you know, and like that true happiness and that sense of self-compassion really comes when we make the decisions that are truly best for us and our family, and we kind of let go of some of that other stuff that we hear elsewhere.
Yeah. I mean, it was so hard to watch you through that, you know, that journey that you had with him, and kind of that acceptance and things are okay, and this is good for me, and it's totally fine and good for him, and you know, everything's gonna be okay.
Yeah, it's so funny because I never worried about him. Like, it was never like, is this milk, is this donor milk what is best for him? It was always kind of the shame that was wrapped up in it for me before I made like the final decision that I was gonna stop pumping and he was gonna drink somebody else's milk. So I don't know. It's interesting.
That's good. But I felt the same way with the girls when I rolled up into when the IBCLC came to see me and whatever, and I'd seen her with multiple kids before. I'm like, here's what's gonna happen. You know, this is what we're gonna do. Just help me come up with a plan, because you know, with other little kids, this is what is the best for me. And in knowing what I went through before, and
it's really choosing you, I think, in a lot of times, which I think is where it comes from, where you started this whole thing with the fact that a lot of the ones we're talking about today really come from a little bit of maturity and a little bit of self-growth and a little bit of putting ourselves first, which isn't always the way that we're kind of programmed, especially when we have little tiny babies. So what's the next one? All right,
my thoughts have value.
Oh, you say these and I always like have to take this like deep breath of like, because I just want to shut so many of these out. Like, my brain immediately goes to this place where I'm like, can we just move on and talk about like my cheese doodles that are coming soon? I mean, I think that, and I don't mean to bring up like society in general, but I think that so much of the way that at least the United States is built. It's built to basically tell us, I think, as mothers, that our thoughts don't have value. I mean, I think that when we're forced to go back to work, when, we're dying more than we should in childbirth, when it's not safe in a lot of ways to have a baby, like there's just a whole lot of stuff that happens that I think by the time we come to the other side, women in general are taught maybe that our thoughts aren't as valuable as they actually are. So then we have to find our voice, and we have to find our thoughts, and we have to figure out, if our intuition, or if, our feelings do have value, which of course they do.
Mm-hmm.
But how do we get there?
Yeah. For me, I think that it all gets tied into, one day it's just you. Yes, you're pregnant. Yes, you can feel that little one inside, and they're going to be here. And then the next day they're here, and that little one everything becomes kind of about that baby. And so we put ourselves so low on the list. And I think that includes our thoughts and feelings and all of that. And I think the longer you kind of stay down there and don't keep that in mind, and don't slowly start to, find that new you and learn about that new you, and it can stay down there for a long time. Those your values, you start to kind of believe that, oh no, well, what I would like to do right now, or my thoughts of myself, or, my needs. No, like, don't do that. I feel like we do that to ourselves.
I mean, I'm almost 11 years into parenthood. And like this week, Lindy and I haven't really seen a whole lot of each other. There's been stuff happening at Latched Mama where we have been literally head down working almost every single day. And it's been heavy stuff. And it's just been hard. And we're not walking in the mornings because I don't like being cold. So we haven't seen each other. So I reached out to her and I was like, hey, we really need to do a date at one night this week. And so we figured out that Wednesday before after hours was the best idea for both of our schedules and our families. But I have to say, even just looking at my husband 11 years into motherhood and saying, hey, Lindy and I are going to go out to dinner before after hours. I'm out of pocket from 6 o'clock on. Completely accepted it. It was fine. Everything. It was on the calendar. It was totally cool. But there was still that moment of, is this okay that I do this? Can I leave him with this many kids? Is it really fair to him? Because he's going to have dinner time through bedtime, through bath time, which he normally has on after hours nights anyways. Like, it was fine, but it's so funny because it's just not like, and I value the people and the other mothers in life that I watch do this on a regular basis.
Yeah.
Because it's hard. I think it's also because I really, truly do enjoy and love the evenings together as a family. I think some of it is just love for that, but holy moly, was it nice to hang out with you and have connection and not have kids crawling around and stuff. But
I have that conversation every single time.
Yeah.
And I'll even, like, we're at a point where, we want to communicate kind of what we're thinking or what we're feeling, like trying to work on that. I'm talking about my husband. And so I'll say, like, I struggle making this decision for me. And he'll be like, why do you do this? And I'm like, I know, I know. But there will always be a part of me as a mom, as a wife, partner, whatever. I will always have that little bit of, no, but I don't. I can, give it to them. And but I know that it is okay.
Yeah.
Like, it is
and
really
I'm
okay.
not talking about like the safety. Like, can I leave my kids safe? Or like, are my kids going to be okay? Or are they going to feel loved? Like, I'm just talking about the inner stuff. Like, are you really, truly worth, when it comes down to it, this time away that that you need? And that's the part that I just encourage everybody to kind of dig into. And because you're absolutely worth it. And I think it's such an important thing. I mean, you're going to get connection, especially like from this example, like this whole like friendship connection. You're actually going to, from the studies say that you will get energy from connection. More so than in some ways like taking a nap or doing other things. It's like there's something in validation and connection that gives you energy and optimism and stuff moving forward. And some of that connection sometimes can't come directly from your partner, especially in the years of motherhood. I think finding another woman who can actually like meet you there and can actually feel what you're feeling, I think is really important too. So I don't know. You're worth it. Your thoughts have feelings. If you feel like you need to get away, if you feel like you need to go do something, do it because you matter.
And I think sometimes I apply that. Even sometimes with working out, I'm like, I don't have an hour. I don't know why I always put like this time on something. It's weird. But I'm like, if you have 15 minutes, like you can start small. It's not like you're like, I can't go away from the weekend, or I can't do a night, or anyways. But find a little increment and meet with a friend for coffee for 30 minutes, or you know what I'm saying?
No,
like,
I
struggle
from,
with that.
Yeah. Like this week I went from, oh my gosh, all I want to do is go lie on a beach in Thailand and like go hang out in temples and eat really, really good food and hang out with a bunch of Buddhist people and just chill. Like that's all I wanted to do.
Yeah.
Now I compromised at dinner at the local brewery with Lindi before I went back to work at 9 p.m. But I know I'm worth that trip to Thailand. 100%. It's not feasible right now at all, but it's not that I don't think I'm worth it.
Yeah.
You know, so I think I would encourage you all to do the work to get there. You know, read the books.
Talk to the people,
whether they be professional or not, and try and get there, you know? So. Yeah.
All right. I'm getting stronger.
Physically or mentally? Because I feel hella weak this week.
I know. I feel like it could play to all the parts of us.
Oh, I mean, I think after childbirth, you need to give yourself time, especially physically. You know, it's gonna be a while, I think, before your body starts to feel strong again.
Yeah. And also, I don't know, I feel like you can play the word strength into like sitting in those places that you may not in the past have wanted. Do you know what I'm saying?
No,
like,
I 100%.
Not necessarily strength as in like, oh, I'm strong, or I can lift weights, or but the strength in just navigating through those is huge.
Yeah. I mean, I was actually just thinking this week, I get filled with a lot of gratitude sometimes because this like therapy journey has been something that I never in a million years expected to be what it was. And it's been 2 years, but just my ability to have the strength and like the endurance to sit in uncomfortableness is unbelievable. Like if you had ever told me that somewhere in all of this I would learn how to actually feel uncomfortable without grabbing sugar or displacing it somewhere else, or I mean, I've always had pretty benign coping skills, like in terms of like I've never used drugs or smoked a cigarette or done anything. I mean, I'll have a glass of wine, but just the idea that like I'm learning to be strong enough that they don't consume me, but I still feel them enough to learn from them and learn what changes and stuff I want to make in my life. So not that you can ever get rid of all the uncomfortableness, but what is it about this situation that's either triggering something from my past, or do I need to change it or change how I'm showing up or something like that? It's that strength. And I think some of it, of course, is from therapy, but some of it is just like life and motherhood in general. It's like when you start to allow yourself to feel things and they don't kill you, you know, it's like I ran a marathon. It didn't die. What am I going to do next? You know, kind of something like that. Like my worst case scenario happened and I'm still here and I'm still okay. You know, there's some sort of strength in that, I think, you know. And
I really just see that word as another word. Like you could just put grow in there. Yeah. So, you know, because when you think, I don't know, you kind of go to physical strength. Yeah. But I really just think it's like I'm growing and changing and learning. Yeah. Is kind of how I see it.
We've had a lot of conversations this week and last week and this month and last month and all the time about really having those hard conversations and like making change in your life, and whether they be with a partner or whether they be with your pediatrician when they're saying something you don't agree with, or your mother-in-law or your boss or something like that, and really truly leaning in to that feeling of discomfort and truly realizing that you are strong. And sometimes those feelings of growth that feel uncomfortable are actually what are going to make you stronger and going to make you continue to be able to show up for yourself and your family. So don't be afraid of them. Yeah. You know, I think that that's like one of my big takeaways is that really having those hard conversations is a learned skill. And something that, you know, I think that if you can find the safe places to have them and to try to learn and develop that skill, I think it can benefit yourself and your family and all of that as well. So
Absolutely agree.
it's just like, you know, lifting weights. Like if you don't ever up the weight, you're not going to really get any stronger, you know? So like you have to lean in to those feelings. And like, I know for me, you know, I worked in corporate America for a while, and like I remember the first time I got called into somebody's office, and it was like literally 2 weeks after I started. And I got called in because I wasn't wearing heels and they didn't like my clothes. And they didn't feel like I looked professional enough. I was a little rough around the edges. Like I wasn't like everybody else was extremely polished. They were like Northern Virginia real estate-y, you know, mostly blonde hair and, you know, tight suits and heels and stuff like that. All the stuff that we don't really want to admit sells things sometimes, but it does in terms of like, you know, gross real estate, DC stuff, you know. But I remember sitting in that conversation and crying and them having to hand me tissues. And like I look back on it now and I'm not upset at myself that I cried, but my fortitude for sitting in those like hard conversations and leading some of them now has completely changed. And it's actually gotten me a lot further and in a position that I'm really, really proud of, you know, now.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
I love it. And I actually I liked the weights with the muscles. And I think, you know, those muscles, in order for them to grow, have to go through hard things and be torn apart and rebuild. And you fuel it with those good things, whether that therapy, those connections, those, you know, all that learning. And
like, cause if you're sitting
you
and
become
really
stronger.
If you're sitting in really poor boundaries with your in-laws, or Christmas or the holidays were absolutely terrible this year, you know, the only way to really solve that is to have that hard conversation. The only way to make next year better is to sit in those feelings and to try to communicate them and to have a conversation. And I think that that's something that is sometimes lost as we grow, but especially when we become mothers, for all of the other things we've talked about, is suddenly we don't think our thoughts matter and we don't know where our voice is, and it's all about our kids and stuff like that. But I think if we can really learn how to lean into those conversations and remember that our worth is great, you know, I mean, we are worth something. Although some days we feel like we're just worth diaper changes and contact naps and all of that stuff. Like it all matters. So.
And then, I mean, then it only escalates to some days I'm like, I feel like I'm just the taxi and the food service and, you know, definitely well out of the diaper changes, but there's something more.
Yeah.
something's coming up next, you know? So
all right, guys. So we're done. What series are we going to do next?
We need another one.
Okay.
I really enjoyed this. So.
All right. Go join the Latched Mama podcast group on Facebook or send us an email at podcast@latchedmama.com and give us some ideas on our next series.
Yes.
A lot of different podcasts are doing call-ins, so maybe we can do some of that again. Maybe bring that in.
Okay.
But we want to know what you guys want to talk about for the next series. So go ahead and subscribe if you haven't already. Share it somewhere on a social media platform and leave us a review if you guys can. And then send it to podcast@latchedmama.com and we will send you a blanket with all of our affirmations.
Last week
yes,
for a blanket. If you've not gotten one,
it's
you can
the
only
last,
get one.
Yes, it's the last week. All right. Thanks, guys.